Hello, everyone. Today, I'm going to share my journey of life with you. And the hopes I have with this story, or me sharing my story with you, is that you guys can realize that regardless of whatever happened to you in life, if you want it bad enough, you can always succeed and overcome. My journey began in 1982 in Kingston, Jamaica. I entered into this world a product of adultery. My dad cheated on his wife. So my mother gave birth to a child who she believed now is going to gain her the man of her dreams. And then my dad is figuring out how is he going to go home and tell his wife about the biggest mistake of his life. That mistake is me. Obviously, through my first real memory, I'm going to forward you to the age of 7. I remember it was Christmas time. I was sitting at the table with my mother, and I'm pretty sure I must have been spending vacation with her because I have no real recollection of ever living with her. I was always bounced around from family member to family member, from aunts to grandmas, to cousins, to uncles. I've lived everywhere. This particular Christmas, she was baking a cake. And I remember I was licking the batter off the spoon, and she began telling me the story of my birth. And it was a difficult birth, and we both almost lost our lives. And at the end of her telling me the story, she said, "This is the reason I have a hatred towards you, because you almost killed me." Fast forward, as I said, I've just been living around. At the age of 10, I migrated here to Miami to live with my dad. By this time, my dad was a single father. His wife had divorced him. He already had his 3 children that they shared together living with him. So now I'm the 4th child. He's a single father. My dad did an amazing job raising us. He did the best he could. But for me, I always felt like the odd one out. Every time something will come about, I always felt, well, he wouldn't have been going through this if I wasn't born, and he would have still been with his wife. So I blame myself for a lot. I never shared the way I felt with him or my siblings. In fact, I didn't start sharing my feelings until high school when I met my first boyfriend. I thought he was the man of my dreams. Fell in love with this man. He listened to me. He listened to my stories. He laughed with me. Until not long after that became abusive. But I stuck around because in my mind, here I am, I now find someone who loved me, or at least that's what I thought. It wasn't until at the age of 18, when I found myself pregnant, I realized in that moment, there's no way I can stay with this particular person to raise a child. Made the decision to move on my own. 2 days after my 19th birthday, laying on that cold table, the operating table, surrounded by nothing but doctors, nurses, not a single familiar face in sight, I gave birth to my son. When I heard his first cry, I remember I said, "I will give this little boy something I never had. I will give him a mother." So now here I am, a single 19-year-old mother, and trying to figure out, how am I going to make it? How am I going to do this? I decided to get a job. It didn't take long for me to realize a job with nothing but a high school education is not going to do anything for me. There's no way I can care for a child. So I went ahead and registered in school. I went to college. things got really hard trying to juggle being a single mom, working, and going to school. So I made the decision to drop out of college. And I continued living. Eventually, I figured I got a handle on this thing called life, and life was going okay. I was working, taking care of my son, and just going through life. Until at the age of 24, I gave birth to twins, still single. Now I'm a 24-year-old single mother of 3. Now I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I possibly going to care for my children? I struggled. It was hard. We went through a lot. One night, I put all 3 of my kids to bed. And I gave them what I thought would have been the final kiss from their mother. I got into my car. And I started driving. When I started driving, I was looking for a lake that I could drive into. Because in that moment, I figured, if I wasn't here, maybe my kids could get adopted into a better family. And someone would be able to take care of them better than I could. But of course, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I kept circling around for hours. I eventually got on the phone with a friend who talked me down, brought me back to reality, drove back home, and held on to my kids. When I woke up that morning, I realized I have to do something. This can't be it. And me sitting here feeling sorry for myself or bringing myself to the verge of taking my own life, I have to do something about it. So I went to seek help. I went to Workforce One with my children. I said, I need help. I don't know where to turn. I don't know what to do, but I know I need help. So they said, okay. I said, I want to go back to school because I know I can't make it with a high school education. They talked me through how to fill out for financial aid for school, showed me how to fill out for food stamps. And I got the ball rolling. I started going to school, started working part-time. And I was still by myself. There were times when I remember as I was going through school, I had to bring the kids to class with me. There was one final exam I had to take. I had to bring the twins with me. I went to class about an hour before so I could, wait for the professor to beg him, please, I don't know what to do. I don't have a babysitter, but I have to take my test. He said, okay, no problem. He brought the kids. I was able to take my test. I continued going through, still getting the help. Now I have some help. I didn't have help from a mother, but I had Uncle Sam. He was helping me out. So a friend of mine called me one night and said, hey, Kay, I know you're going through a lot, and the Section 8 is open up. If you guys are not familiar with Section 8, it's a public housing from the government. It was a Friday night, she said, but you have to join the line tonight, but you won't get the application until 8 o'clock Saturday morning. I grabbed a chair. By 7 p.m. Friday night, I was sitting in that line. It was cold, I remember that, because I was freezing my butt off. But I sat there the entire night until 8 o'clock that morning. Got the application. 1 year later, I was approved for Section 8. Finally, now me and my kids will really have a home. We got a home. Now things are looking up. And what I found out how Section 8 works, just in case how you guys don't know, Section 8 is not entirely a free handout. What they do is, based on the amount of money you earn, they say, okay, you have this expense. Based on that, you can afford to pay this amount of rent. and then we will help you pay the balance. So I said, okay, now that I get it. So I started working, I'll pay my little portion. And I throughout everything, I never stopped going to school because I knew the only way I could make it out of that I was going through was to get a college degree. I continued, life was looking better. I got married. I'm still going to school. My big turnaround point came in August of 2016 when I walked into that auditorium with the cap and gown on, with everyone screaming, and I'm walking through and I'm looking for my assigned seat. And when I sat there just waiting to hear my name called so I can collect my diploma. When they got to my name and called my name, I jumped up so quickly because I was so excited that I broke the heel off my shoe. So here I am, but I didn't care because I was happy. And I remember I was hopping like this, going to get, and I was smiling. And when I got my diploma in my hand, the guy who shook my hand, he said, "Man, aren't you happy?" And I sat there and I looked up and I said, if you only knew, because I could look up and there go my husband, my children, and they're all screaming, "Mommy, Mommy," and I got a college degree in my hand. Since then, life obviously I've looked up. I'm no longer in government assistance. I have a pretty good job here. I have my own tax firm that I'm running. I am currently a graduate student at Nova Southeastern University as I'm working on my master's in accounting. And of course, my ultimate goal is to become a certified public accountant, a CPA. My journey has not ended, but my journey began back then. From the very moment I entered into this world, all odds were stacked up against me being the product of an adultery. But look at me now. Look at me now.